Hello friends! Today we're going to crack open Leonard Bernstein's On the Waterfront, a film-scored guide by Anthony Bushard. We'll be dissecting pages 99 to 135, where Dr. Bushard presents us with a scene-by-scene analysis and the connection of motivic ideas that the composer, Leonard Bernstein, presents to the audience. This was the first and only film score that Bernstein ever composed. While the film received a commercial success, receiving 8 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, there is one recurring public criticism, and that is that the dialogue tends to be obscured by music. Perhaps this correlates to Bernstein's sentiments towards film music. According to Humphrey Burton, Bernstein felt that composing film music was a musically unsatisfactory experience for a composer to write a score whose chief merit ought to be unobtrusiveness. Unquote. In other words, Bernstein wants his music noticed. However, we find several examples in Dr. Bushard's analysis that defend Bernstein's attention to dialogue. Now, Dr. Bushard breaks apart his analysis by musical cues and reel/part numbers. Each of these titles was given by Bernstein, and Dr. Bushard compares the manuscript with the final score. Let's summarize some of these main points that he makes. In the opening theme, Bernstein introduces the themes that will recur throughout the movie. According to the director, Elia Kazan, the basis of the film is one thing only: a young man who has let his dignity slip away and regains it. Dr. Bushard argues that this opening melody represents Terry's journey, Terry being the one man. The theme takes a couple unexpected turns before it reaches an arpeggiated resolution on A natural. Also, according to musicologist Hans Keller, Bernstein reinvented Hollywood music by using counterpoint based on a single thematic line, unlike the more obsolete homophonic approaches. The main title also paints us waterfront scenery. It ends with a wind instrumentation playing in octaves, which is indicative of foghorns, ship whistles, and other waterfront machinery. This next musical cue is called Opening Shot to Scream. In a dramatic shift, we're presented with what Bushard calls the pain theme. The scene encompasses both a background and a foreground, but Dr. Bushard states that Bernstein's violent and rhythmic theme guides the viewer to focus on the men at the dock. The irregularity of the percussion's polyrhythm and meter, along with the low registration, presents a sense of unease that contradicts the serene view of the docks. Here there are semitones and tritones counterbalanced with consonant intervals. From this point on, the pain theme suggests moments where Terry faces a moral dilemma against the violence of Johnny Friendly's gang. The next musical cue is called Roof Morning. This scene takes place after a boat tone whistle, and it incorporates a harp in a dreamy yet remorseful manner. Dr. Bushard describes the recurring rooftop scenes as the peaceful, ideal world, where the polar opposite would be the direct reality of the ground, the lower world. A dual ostinato in the oboes reintroduces the pain motive, as Terry is afraid of the consequences that wait him in the real world below, aka the ground. Our next musical cue, called Scramble, takes place at the docks, where men crowd around desperately looking for work. In this shape-up scene, the music is presented with an inversion of the original pain motive, now as an ascending minor second and ascending perfect fourth. There's also a frenzy of rhythm to depict the chaos. Along with it, there is a descending harmony, which Dr. Bushard says helps differentiate the oppressors from the oppressed. We are introduced to 3 notes of the love theme on page 111 when Terry meets Eddie, and he realizes that she is the sister of the man he helped kill. In fact, Bernstein's original score featured an additional 11 measures of this love theme, but it might have been cut to prevent the music being played underneath dialogue. In this next cue, there is a musical reconfiguration of the pain motive, surrounded by tightly grouped dissonant chords, where the lowest note of the chord cluster is in fact the pain motive. The rapidly moving ostinato also highlights the unyielding brutality of Friendly and his supporters. Our next scene is titled The Glove Theme. As with any tender moment between Terry and Eddie, we hear the love theme. The love theme, which is derived from the final notes of the pain theme, in retrograde form, depicts how Bernstein composed themes that are in opposition yet somehow related to each other. After all, the central issue to the Director Kazan, and the writer Schulberg, was to depict Terry as a rough individual with a tender side. Dr. Bushard also argues that Bernstein must have been aware of the love theme's commercial appeal. In our next scene, Pigeons and Beer, it consists of two small parts acting as one unit. During the first part, Eddie searches for her brother's killer, and that's indicated by the high shrill strings that are accompanied by a searching, questioning line in the piano. There are several connections to Bernstein's other themes, such as the intervallically inverted pain theme in measure 3. Dr. Bushard argues that this forecasts the pain that Terry and Eddie feel as a couple when he finally confesses. He also shows us how measures 24 to 30 were unfortunately cut from the film, possibly because it distracted too much from Terry's more lighthearted story. Now, when they go to the bar for a conversation, it begins a sequence of 6 musical cues, 5 of which are diegetic. That is to say that the music is actually heard by the characters and not just us, the audience. The music of the jukebox scene was probably initially improvised, but then later notated as found on page 123. Saloon Love. During this cue, we again hear the love theme, when Terry states that he wishes he could help Eddie, but there's nothing he can do. Bernstein limits the harmonic movement of the love theme with a few pedal tones, perhaps because of Terry's unwillingness to help. This way, it doesn't develop fully. Bernstein cleverly titles this next theme as the Sentimental Fox because it introduces the love theme as a foxtrot that Terry and Eddie dance to. More importantly, Bernstein integrates it into the narrative by having it played by a band within the film. Dr. Bushard says, and I quote, "He brings us more fully in contact with their world." In the cue Blue Goon Blues, Barney, one of Friendly's goons, approaches Terry and tells him something is wrong and that Friendly wants to see him immediately. At this moment, we realize the pain theme is in the trumpet, beginning at measure 3. It suggests that Terry cannot escape Friendly's reach. Terry then seems paranoid about his involvement in Joey's death, and even whistles the pain theme as he leaves the bar. The musical cue Accident, which featured music from the opening shot to Scream, never actually made it to the final cut. It was in fact recorded, and indicates that it was supposed to underscore Caio Dugan's murder. Apparently Bernstein saw a connection between Joey's murder and this one, but he seemed a little unsure of himself on its usage. After Dugan's murder, we hear the violence theme, which shows an upward motion, as Father Barry compares Dugan's murder to Christ's crucifixion, also an upward motion. Dr. Bushard argues that the harmonic ambiguity in this music reflects Terry's battle with his conscience. In this section, there is some discrepancy to why Bernstein's short score and the symphonic suite includes a citation of the pain motive, yet it is not actually included in the soundtrack. Dr. Bushard suggests that this change must have happened at some point during the recording session. During Roof 3, Eddie seeks out Terry and offers him her brother Joey's jacket because Terry's jacket is falling apart. This love theme is presented throughout this music and is most noticeable in the flute. At the moment of their first kiss, we hear a tritone shift, which Dr. Bushard best explains by saying that through Bernstein's harmonic variation, the kiss carries with it a bittersweet feeling. During the confession scene, the noise of the dock machinery and the steam whistle renders the dialogue inaudible. After Terry admits his guilt, the pain motive introduces itself in the high strings and is cleverly synchronized with the dock's machinery noise. Well, that's all, folks. I think that this chapter was a very clever insight to Bernstein's themes and their correlations with one another. I appreciated that Dr. Bushard compared earlier manuscript with the soundtrack and attempted to investigate when or why changes happened to the final cut. It helps us to understand Bernstein's original intentions. There are certainly moments where he seems more interpretive than he seems critical, and I think that it presents a good forum for further discussion and criticism.